I don't get excited about pumpkin pie. I don't get excited about pumpkin spice lattes. I don't get excited about any of the new fall Starbucks menu items. But I do get excited about these pumpkin spice cinnamon sugar bagels. These are made with vegan Greek yogurt, flour, seasonings, pumpkin puree. They come together super fast, no yeast, no proofing time. You can make them on Sunday morning for your family and friends. Let's do it. Hairs up so you know we ain't business. Okay, first of all, what are we gonna spread on this bagel? Don't worry, I've got something for you. We're gonna make a vegan maple walnut cream cheese. How good does that sound? Now, thanks to Food Magic, I do already have one done, but I'm gonna show you how to make it. It's actually so easy because it's literally just vegan cream cheese, walnuts, and maple syrup. Shocking, I know. For our vegan cream cheese choice, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't know if I love this. I'm using the Nyokos because there was not the Kite Hill one, which the Kite Hill one is my go-to vegan cream cheese. This Nyokos one is okay. It's a little tangier than I like, but unfortunately that's all they had and I needed it, so that's what we're using. If you can get Kite Hill, I say get Kite Hill, but this Nyokos one is okay. I'm warning you now, I'm not gonna be doing exact measurements because this is one of those things you could just eyeball. On the blog, I will have exact measurements for you. Just gonna empty out the rest of this vegan cream cheese in here. This should probably be about 3 ounces. We got maple syrup. This is golden maple syrup, which I don't really know the difference between golden maple syrup and non-golden, like a dark amber. Like, I don't know, I guess the sugar is caramelized longer. You just wanna mix this up. Just kind of use a spatula to mush it together. If you like it more or less sweet, then you can add more or less maple syrup based on the measurements on the blog or in the description box. And then I just have some chopped walnuts, so we can throw those in, mix it up. If you want to add pecans instead, or almonds or cashews, like, well, maybe not cashews, but almonds or pecans I think would be good in here as well. So you can see it from mixing it, it gets really soft. So that's why you want to make this first. Ideally, you even could make this the night before, so it'll have time to set in the fridge. It doesn't taste any different, it's just a texture thing. I will add it into my little bowl. And there we go, step 1 all done, and I'm gonna pop this in the fridge. Just like when we made our apple coffee crumb cake, we're using the kitchen scale. We've talked about why kitchen scales are very good for baking, more accurate measurements. You don't need to whip out a bunch of measuring spoons and measuring cups. Something else I just wanna say is I will be using that's backwards. I will be using agave in the bagel recipe if you want to just stick with using like maple syrup for it, because we use maple syrup with the walnut, maple vegan cream cheese you can, or if you want to make it in agave cream cheese, you can do that too. I just kind of have both in my kitchen and I don't know, I kind of use them interchangeably, honestly. Sometimes I don't also want to use up all of my maple syrup on like something like this where I'm baking, so I'd rather use the agave. So it just comes down to personal preference and kind of what you'd rather use up. But use them interchangeably, even if you want to do a different one like a brown rice syrup, you know, something like that, it'll work fine too. We're going to start off by adding our wet ingredients in. So I have pumpkin puree here, and we're going to add in 1/4 cup or 65 grams of that. I tell you, pumpkin is beautiful, but it tastes like nothing. The pumpkin itself. The pumpkin pie spice is what everyone goes crazy for. Then we're gonna do 3/4 cup or 170 grams of vegan Greek style yogurt. I have not tested this with a non-Greek style yogurt, so I don't know what would happen if you just used like a typical, like a coconut yogurt or something. I'm using the Kite Hill one. I'm really obsessed with this, I really like it. So if you decide to change, you know, it up, just let me know how it goes. Hopefully it would still work fine, but I can't speak to it because I haven't tried it. And then last but not least, we're going to add in 1 tablespoon or 21 grams of agave. Just mix up our wet ingredients. You can taste this, and if you feel that you want a sweeter bagel, you can always add in more agave. We are putting a cinnamon sugar topping on top, and the vegan cream cheese is sweetened, so keep that in mind on how sweet you want this to be. Let's have a quick little team meeting and talk about flour. For this recipe, I'm using bread flour. Bread flour is the same as all-purpose flour, but it has a higher protein content. So on here it says the protein content is 12.7%, whereas on regular all-purpose flour, at least from King Arthur, is like 11.4%. This will result in a breadier bread. I don't know, it will result in a different kind of crumb in the bread. So you can use bread flour. If you want to use all-purpose flour, it will also work just fine. It doesn't matter, but I have bread flour, so I decided to use it, but I don't want you to feel like you have to go out and get bread flour. It'll work fine with all-purpose flour. And in terms of gluten-free flour, I would use either gluten-free all-purpose 1-to-1. I think like King Arthur and Bob's Red Mill makes them, or you could use 1-to-1 gluten-free bread flour. That will probably yield the most similar results. I have not tried it. I cannot speak to it. We are going to sift in our flour and baking powder because it can result in like a better, smoother dough. So I always am partial to sifting. So we're gonna do 300 grams or 2.5 cups of our bread flour. I need to see if I have enough in here. I may have to get my other bag. I'm gonna be a little bit short, come on. Well, I'll sift this to start. To sift, really all you need is a fine mesh sieve, strainer, whatever you want to call it. I also actually have a flour sifter, but packed away. I didn't feel like getting it out right now. Tell me why opening a bag of flour is so difficult. While I got all this going on, I'm also going to add in my baking powder, which we're going to need 20 grams of baking powder, which is like approximately 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon of flour or baking powder. But 20 grams is the more accurate measurement, so keep that in mind. This is our only leavening agent as well. The baking powder is important. You just tap it in. Just tap it in. I hope somebody gets that movie reference. And then we got pumpkin pie spice, which pumpkin spice is really just a combination of cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, and ginger. So you can use those individual ingredients if you have them. You can buy pumpkin pie spice, and we're gonna add in 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of it. Just have to mix this up. I really made a mess with this flour, huh? So just mix this up until we get a shaggy dough. This is so much easier than making traditional bagels because as delicious as traditional bagels are, they're quite literally one of my favorite foods. Traditional bagels, you have to wait for the dough, you have to wait for the yeast, you gotta boil it, then you gotta bake it. It's a lot of work, which is why they're so darn good. But this is like, if you want a quick bagel version, if you don't want to have to do all the work, if you just want something that gets the job done, these will work. The texture on these is slightly different. It is a little bit almost muffin-esque, like a little bit, not entirely. It still is very bready, but it works really well for these, like this specific flavor. And just so you know, a shaggy dough is like this. This is what we're looking for, where they have these like pieces and clumps. It's not just all separated anymore. It's kind of coming together. Rings are off. I'm taking them off. Don't worry, everyone gets upset about rings. I'm just gonna start kneading. I didn't ever try kneading this with a dough hook. I'm trying to keep this like a low maintenance recipe. I guess if you want to use a dough hook, it might work. I mean, it should in theory work. It's dough, but this is easy enough to knead by hand. I'm very into kneading by hand because then I can feel the dough. I can feel if it needs more liquid or flour. Like I like to be able to touch the dough and feel it. And from years of baking, you'll learn what the dough needs. This dough should be sticky. It shouldn't necessarily like, did you just hear my knuckle crack? It shouldn't necessarily be like sticky, like it's sticking to you, but it should just be sticky to the touch. At this point, I just want to do a slight bit more kneading. I'm gonna just take a little sprinkle of the flour to help me out. Now this is like a total unnecessary, you don't have to do this, but I like to try to get my bagels to be about the same size. So I weighed the dough before, and then I'm gonna cut it into quarters and then I'll adjust. I'm looking for 146 grams of dough per bagel. What we're working with here, it's 168, okay. That's 147, I could deal with it. The first time I made these bagels, they really didn't come out very pretty. So this, like I was just testing the recipe and I wanted to see how they came out. So now I have developed a little method. So you're gonna roll it out. Always flour your surface. You don't need to make this too long because nobody wants a thin bagel. We want chubby, dense bagels here. Well, not dense, but you know what I mean. Like we don't want little scraggly guys. Roll it out to like this long and this thick. And then I just kind of squeeze with my hand to push those two ends together. You have fun with this, let it be therapeutic. And your bagels don't need to be perfect, but this just helps to make it into a smoother dough. There you go, there's a bagel. You also don't need too much flour. If you feel like it's sticking, then you can always add more flour, but you don't need like a ton, so don't go crazy. Now, because the bagels will rise as they cook, you do want to give a little bit of a decent sized hole in there. Otherwise, if you don't, then it won't look like a bagel, so. And here I have mixed a little bit of agave with water, and we're gonna brush that on the bagels. This is gonna do two things. It's gonna give additional sweetness and flavor to the outside of the bagel, but it's also going to help us because we're of course adding a topping on here. And because these bagels don't get boiled, they don't make a nice color sort of when they're baked without anything. So the agave will help to add some color and caramelization really to the outside of this bagel that a traditional boiled bagel will have. Now for our toppings, we're gonna do two things. We're gonna add some oats. I love oats. I feel like they're very fall-esque. Pop some on. The first time I made these with the oats, I mixed the oat and the cinnamon sugar together, but I don't really feel that's necessary. You just sprinkle the oats and then sprinkle the cinnamon sugar. And the ones that fall, I just try to like push them so at least they bake to the side of the bagel. We're gonna sprinkle some cinnamon sugar on these guys. If you don't have cinnamon sugar, you can always just obviously make it by mixing cinnamon and sugar. Our bagels are ready to be baked. These are going in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176 degrees Celsius. They bake for about 20 minutes. Depending on your oven, may need a little more time, but yeah, I'll see you guys when these are done. It's been 20 minutes. I know I say this every time, but I wish you could smell it in here. Let's get these bagels out of the oven. Oh my goodness. Look at these. Okay, I think this might be the most perfect one. Look at this bagel. These are so gorgeous. Now, unfortunately, we gotta let these cool for about 20 minutes because they're just, we need that crumb inside to get a little more compact because it's freshly baked. But you could see it is a different bagel consistency than like a traditional yeasted bagel. They look so good. This one looks really good too. Look at that. Just so you see what the inside looks like. So it looks like a bagel. It just has a little bit of a, like I said, like a muffiny feel to me. And now we're gonna grab that beautiful vegan maple walnut cream cheese that we made onto our bagel. And there you have it. Oh my goodness, look at that. Gorgeous. Let's take a bite of these bagels, shall we? I just love how well this vegan cream cheese pairs with this recipe. Mmm, so good. I have my ghost milk with me. Isn't he the cutest? I got it from Target. There you have it. Easy, vegan, breakfast, so fall, so seasonal, so good. You gotta try it, you're gonna love it. If you haven't seen the other fall recipes, go check them out. As always, the full runout recipes on the blog. You can find the ingredients written in the caption down below. Thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you soon with another fall recipe. Bye!